Welcome to the Business Performance Podcast, where we feature expert thought leaders and cover their best strategies, stories, and advice that you can use to successfully mature your own business performance. Now, here is your host, business coach, Henry Schneider. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Business Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Henry Schneider, and today it's my pleasure to speak with Carrie Vanston, who, despite what she looks like, is an alligator wrangler. But she is the Alligator Wrangler. She helps businesses, leaders who are stuck in stress and being overwhelmed to increase their leadership skills and energy levels so they can reach their goals quicker and focus on the things that they get value out of and love. She's also the co-author of the award-winning book, Mini Trends, with her father, Dr. John Vanston. So, Carrie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
All right, so Carrie, what I always ask all my guests at the beginning is to start out with is if you could please just briefly describe what you do, the types of customers you work with, and the types of products and services that you provide.
Well, that's a great question. But why don't I back up a little bit and let me kind of tell you, the first question that people usually ask me is, why are you the Alligator Wrangler? So let me back up just a bit. And I worked for a technology forecasting company for a long time. And what we found was that people didn't just want to forecast the future, they actually wanted to create the future. And so my father, who had started a company, and I came up with a list of best practices to help people do that. And that list of best practices eventually became a book called Mini Trends, which would really help people really find small trends and take advantage of them and create businesses or grow businesses around them. So the book won a couple of Best Book Awards. And we started doing conferences and consulting and coaching around the material, which was great. But what I found was there was just a lot of people that were just really unhappy, especially in corporate, because they just didn't have an opportunity to really use those creative skills or, that desire to really create something. And I started looking around for ways to help them, and I just got really, really interested in culture. So I started really working on culture, conscious capitalism, all these kind of different culture ideas. And I started coaching and consulting around that. And I just loved it. But after a while, I found that a lot of the stuff I was doing was just like Band-Aids, because the leaders, unless the leaders bought into it and had an open mindset, not this fixed mindset of, you got to do it the way that, I say, we've always done it this way, that kind of thing, that it was just, again, like putting Band-Aids on. It wasn't sustainable. So I started getting kind of stuck too, and I started feeling, stressed out and overwhelmed and frustrated. Well, then I ran across this great executive coaching program through UT called IPAC, and I went through a 9-month program that really gave me the techniques and methodologies where I could actually transform that fixed mindset, that negative kind of stuck in the fight and flight kind of energy. I could transform that into the energized growth mindset. And it worked great for me, and I had the tools to share it with others. Well, one of the first people that I came across right after that, a business owner, he came to me and said, Carrie, I'm just so overwhelmed and stressed. I have a list of to-dos this long, and they're falling through the cracks. My wife is upset with me because I never get home for dinner. I just had somebody quit on me. My team is driving me crazy. Can you help me? I feel like I'm in an alligator pit. And I just thought, alligator pit. Wow, that's the way I feel sometimes. And I said, well, heck yeah, I can get you out of that alligator pit. I can get you out, I can keep you out, and I can move you on. And I did. And that's when I became the Alligator Wrangler.
So you bring up some interesting things here that I'd like to explore a little further. That executive, he knew he needed help. But other people are, what I call it's a 12-step process. Most everybody's in denial. So how do you get somebody that's in denial that they need help to talk with you, to actually engage you?
Well, Well, one thing I do is I have this amazing assessment that kind of shows where you are under stress and where you are under normal circumstances, and then we can really see, where those alligator pits are, where those blind spots are, and where those beliefs are that are kind of holding you back. And that way, really get a clear idea of that. For example, one of the people I was working with, he's actually a leader also of a company, and what we did was we took the assessment, and the trick is that we often get stuck in compromise. So if we can get by that compromise and really listen to the other person, then we can figure out what their win is, and we can figure out, and then we can frame our win around that so that it becomes a true win-win. And so when you become aware of those kind of things, then, there's as you talk to people and as you question them, what are your challenges? What's going on? What are you frustrated about? Now, what would be, imagine if everything, if you had a magic wand and everything was perfect, what would that look like? And then you start comparing those two things. Then, you can really come up with some ways that you can start getting through those blocks so people start recognizing them and realize that they need some help.
Yeah.
In this particular case, the leader was, his company was growing and growing, and he was frustrated because he wanted to keep his culture great. He wanted to, respond to people and have this great culture, but he was kind of losing. It is growing. He was having growing pains with it, and basically what we talked about was, how do you make this a win-win situation? And what we worked on was being curious about the other person. What we really want is we want to be cared about. We want to be cared about. That's the key to our heart, is being cared about. So really being curious about the other people. Ask them, what do they do on the weekends? What do they care about? What do they love about their job? And this is really important to ask, not just yes, no questions. Do you like your job? Yes or no. But instead, open-ended question. What do you like about your job? How does it fit in with the other things we're doing? How does it fit in with your dreams for the future? And when you start asking questions like that, you just open up the conversation. So, that's really important. Another thing that we worked on intuitive listening. So, subjective listening is objective listening is, what do you think about this? I don't know if I really like that. You say, oh, but you do like it. You do like it. Let me tell you all the reasons that you like it. Objective listening is, well, do you like this? No, I'm not sure if I like this. Oh, well, tell me the reasons why you don't like it. And that's better, because at least you're getting the other person's opinion. But then if you take that a step further and use intuitive listening, then you really are looking at the person's facial expressions, their body language, the tone of their voice, and then you can really get deeper. And you can ask questions like, so I can tell something's bothering you here. What are your thoughts around that? What else do you have to tell me about that? And that way, it really opens up the conversation. So you put together this, curiosity, open-ended questions, listening intuitively, and then suddenly, you open up the other person and you start really being able to relate to it. So anyway, this leader that I was talking about, he started using these, getting more curious about his people, and he came to me and he said, well, Carrie, I've got to tell you about this. There's this one guy that was just driving me crazy. He was, he was taking this app that I chose and he was changing it, and he was kind of like, he was a financial, representative, and he was changing, and he was kind of bad-mouthing, the app and kind of what was going on. And the client came and complained to me, and I tried to come and talk to him about it and fuss at him. And, my normal way as a type A personality would have been to bring him in and fuss at him and, who knows where it would have gone. But instead I thought, no, Carrie says that there's always a win-win. How can I make this a win-win? So he brings him in. Okay, what's going on? What's going on with the client? Rah, 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 rah. Well, what about the app? What's about it that's bothering you? Rah, 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 rah. And he keeps asking these questions, and the guy keeps on slowly calming down. And then by the end of the conversation, the guy feels heard. Jeff has actually got some ideas for the app that he would never have gotten if they'd been in conflict. The guy doesn't come in with a black cloud over his head anymore, raining on the team. He comes in as much more of a team player, and he's doing pretty well. And now Jeff doesn't have all this stress going on, and so he's happier. So it's just all kind of a win-win, and it was all around the fact that, it's just all about listening and being curious and, changing. And
Okay, yeah, so that brings up a couple of things I want to touch on here. I've worked a lot in Asia, in China and India, and the culture there is, work culture is a lot different from here, because after work, everybody goes out, management and employees, and socializes. They'll go out, eat and drink. Here, at 5 o'clock, everybody goes, they disperse. You don't see anybody after work. And so I think that aspect of the Asian culture is great because it engenders this breaking down of barriers, because the rules are you don't talk about work. You talk about family and interests and everything else. And I think that's a wonderful aspect.
yes, I was just listening to Pat Lencioni today. He was doing a conference, and I was listening, and he was talking about that all about how, that this is really, the COVID-19 thing has really made it so that it's not, that we're not being professional, we're being personal. Mm-hmm. That, somebody might come in the door at any moment, and that we really have to embrace this, because this is so important. Because when we get to know people and we find out about people and we care about them, then, there's three things that people really want. They want to be cared about, they want to know that what they're doing is important, and they want to have some way to measure it. And, this is the time to really be, we're really having the opportunity. I mean, this is like amazing that this period of time where, we're learning how to work together online. We're learning how to really connect, because, you're not someplace, you just see this little piece of us. We're learning to focus in on who is there and how they're reacting and what their background is. That, if we can really take advantage of this and make it something where we look back and say, wow, that had some challenges, but boy, I took full advantage of it. Yeah. Took full advantage of it. And a couple of my clients have done that. One of my clients, actually, I'll start with a woman that she was really struggling, and what she found was that she could use this time to, while she's not working so much, actually concentrate on her art. And so, she has a website. She's been building up the website. She's putting prices on it, and she's actually sold some art. And so she's really excited about that. So doing something different. Another client of mine, a CEO, he was really struggling because he was having a hard time with the social media business has kind of shrunk a bit. And he didn't want to lay off his people. So he's had a couple of ventures in mind. So he started working on a new venture, and he's been having his people work on that, and that's been working out really well for him.
Yeah, so interesting. I was participating in a CIO roundtable put on by the Forrester Group a week or so back, and they were asking all kinds of questions. And one of the things that came out of the roundtable was that everybody's talking about there's empathy for their employees. There's an increased communication now, which to me is just kind of baffling, but they must have been just sitting in their offices before and not interacting, but now they're doing more of that. And they figure, well, that's something I want to keep doing. But I'm thinking is, that's great. You go back to work, you probably fall back into your old ways of doing things. how do you make those changes stick when people think, oh, this is a good thing? What do they have to do to fundamentally change how they interact with people?
It's really the managers and the leaders that really need to be thinking about this and really be very clear that this is the kind of culture they want, that they want to check in with people, that they want to find ways to really bring this, the good things about this in, one of the things I really think is important, as I was telling you earlier, that, I just had published at the 7 tips for staying out of the COVID-19 alligator pit. Texas CEO magazine just published an article that I did, which I'm real excited about. One of the things is that I mentioned there is writing things down. That when you write things down, that it kind of makes a story out of them, and so that your unconscious mind, can kind of communicate better with your conscious mind, and you can kind of see a 360 of what's going on. So that's one thing that people might consider is really some of the good things that come out of this. Write them down. What worked, what didn't work. Professor Pennebaker at UT, the psychology department, he has done some studies on this, and he says that actually writing stuff down actually allows you to make better decisions, and things work better because of that. Art Markman also does a lot of work around that, the guy from Two Guys on Your Head, around that. So that might be one way that people can really think about it. Another way that I think is really great is really working on your goals right now. And this is a great time to work on goals, both for the company and for yourself. So what I suggest is, set up 3 months, a year, 5-year goals, and personal and business. Personal, 3 business, 3 personal, and really write those down. And yeah, they're going to change a little bit because things have changed, but this is a great time to really look at those. And what I really suggest to my audiences and my coaching clients is not just think about, what you're going to, not just write down the goal, but actually think about when it's achieved and how you're going to feel. Really be thinking, how am I going to feel? I'm going to feel really good. Wow. Yeah. Why am I going to feel good? Oh, because, this is going to lead to this, this, and this. And when you do that, it makes you a lot happier now.
Yeah.
Feeling all those great things. But it's a lot more likely to happen because your conscious and unconscious mind work together. And, your higher intelligence starts working toward that. And that's another thing about the teams. This is like one of the things that's working so great right now is people are connecting. And when 2 or more people connect together, it connects to a higher intelligence, and more ideas and more intuition and more of all that stuff comes. And I think that's one of the reasons why people are kind of really getting, kind of excited about this new way of connecting. And it's also interesting because, like I've been going to some meetings. I went to Women in Technology last week because it was online. I've been going to Toastmasters because it's online, because, I live out of the lake. So, this is a big investment to go all the way across town. And so I don't go to some of these things as much as I like. And now, not only can you be there, but you can see exactly who's there. So, you don't have to worry about networking around the room. The people are right there.
Yes, it's a new way of doing things. Now, I've been on a couple of, like I said, I was on the round table. I was listening to that, but I haven't done anything else.
I've been giving this 8 tips for getting out of the COVID alligator pit online. And I've given it, and actually I'm offering it for free for anybody. If anybody's interested, it's an hour long. It's about an hour long. It's about 25 minutes, me talking, and then about half an hour getting people involved. Or I could do it shorter, whatever. There's 8 of them. I can make them 3. But anyway, I've been doing it. I've done it for a couple of Rotary clubs. I've done it for the Texas Austin Technology Council. I'm doing it for Upwards Women next week, and I've done it for some businesses too, and a couple of my clients. And it's just a really great way to be thinking about ways to change your thought process. Because, you know, basically, we have a thought, and it leads to an action, emotion, which leads to an action. So, you know, like if our thought is, oh my gosh, COVID-19, you know, I'm not going to be making any money, my kids are at home, I might get sick, then your emotion is going to be stress, fear, all of that kind of thing. And then your action is going to be, you know, you're going to tighten up, you're going to freeze, or you're going to get angry. But if you can change that thought to something like, oh yeah, I'll get through this, I'll be fine. And, you know, then your emotion is more like, okay, let's do this, you know, it's okay. And then your action, you know, will be, you know, you'll get your work done and you'll move on. But if you can change that to something that's energized, if you can energize that thought and think, wow, now this is challenging, but man, there are some opportunities here. I'm going to find them. And then, you know, your emotion can kind of be excitement. And the result, the action is going to be, you're going to go out there and you're going to find opportunities during this window of opportunity, and some great outcomes are going to come. It's all about changing that thought.
Yeah, so
which we do.
Something else that came out of the roundtable. They were talking about, and I guess it all depends on what your business is, but furloughs. They're saying the people are getting furloughed. You may not get those back, because if they're furloughed, they're probably looking out for some other job. And now you're not going to be guaranteed to get your same employees back that you had. So that could be one of these fears too. So how would you counsel somebody to get over that as a, you know, as an C-level, to worry about getting their workforce back?
I know about a doctor who was, you know, worried about this very same thing, and he actually said, you know, listen, what would you guys think about, you know, having a pay cut so we don't have to let anybody go? And not only were they, you know, like a 10% pay cut, not only were they willing to make a pay cut to keep their other people, but some of the people actually offered to have even a bigger pay cut in order to keep that. So I think the more ways you can think about how you can make it work, you know, like for example, the fellow I was just talking about, that he's taking his people and putting them onto a different venture right now. So, you know, being creative to try not to let those people go. Now, Southwest is a great example. They care, you know, their whole culture is around caring about each other. Right. And so, you know, it really, when we really start thinking about things and putting people's minds together, you know, the team's minds together, and figure out, you know, what can we do here, then maybe sometimes you have to take those steps. But creatively thinking of ways that you don't. And when we think about that way, and win-win, when you really think about a win-win, how could I make this into a win-win? How can I get input from other people? And then I know what my win is. It would be keep the people. What would be their win? How could we somehow make this work? You know, when we think that there must be a win-win, it's much more likely that a win-win is going to happen.
Yeah. So let me explore that. So when you're working with a brand new client and they've never had experienced this win-win type of mentality, where do you start with? Do you start with like a low-hanging fruit, something simple, and then build up, or do you tackle something that's a major problem?
I usually start with, where do you want to be right now? And then, you know, what's your big challenge, and where do you want to be right now? And then start talking about, you know, what would that mean if you had that? And then once they start imagining that ideal situation, then I ask, what's keeping you from getting there? And that usually just opens up just all the assumptions, all the beliefs, all the blind spots start opening up. And then it's like, okay, so how, now that we kind of have an idea, we can look at those and say, okay, why don't we come up with a plan? What are some ways, you know, if you got this goal here, what are some ways we can start working toward that? And so really looking at your goals, but also what value do you have in the situation? That how can you take the value you have, your education, your hard knocks of life, all those things. How can you use those to help you in the situation? And another thing is, how can you look at past experiences that you had? For example, one of my clients, she was struggling with networking, and so she just been promoted, and now she had to go out and network more. And she actually, she thought that sounded great. I'll get to party. But actually, she was going out by herself now. Often she didn't know anybody. It was at night. And now, she kind of had this agenda where she was supposed to, it was a nonprofit, and she was supposed to bring in sponsors and members. And so, she was just like kind of free. She'd drive to these things and she'd be holding on to her steering wheel for dear life. Any reason to go home? Did I leave the dog out? She'd get there, there'd be a big knot in her tummy. She'd look around. It was like, oh my gosh. And, she just wanted to kind of blend into the wallpaper. And, and then finally she'd cling on to somebody and then go home. But she wasn't doing her job. And so, and it was perfectly understandable because, the alligators were snapping, it was like, all this stuff was going on and, she was stressed out. So, we kind of had to change her thinking from that, networking is horrible. I'm a nervous wreck. I'm going to go home to, something positive, something energizing, like, okay, I'm excited here. This is great. And, then her action would be meeting people and making connections. So the first thing we did was we looked at her value. What do you have the value in this circumstance? And she was like, well, gosh, I know all the resources in town. If these people need help in connecting with people, I know a lot of people. I can help in that way. And I was like, yeah, great. Okay, we'll focus on that. And then how in the past have you met people that were good contacts? Can you think back, something, a strength, a personality thing, or something, a quality about you that's special. And she said, well, about a year or two ago, I did go to this great St. Patrick's Day event, and there was this really funny centerpiece on the table, and I had the whole table cracking up. I was making jokes about the centerpiece, and I made two really good contacts that night. And I was like, well, what about you was really great? And she thought, her sense of humor. And a lot of times when we're nervous and uptight, our sense of humor goes out the window.
That's right.
So, yeah. So, we came up with a couple of things for her to say to kind of break the ice. And, she started responding really well. And then we set goals for her. So, every week she'd say, she made the commitment that, I'll go to 2 events. I'll approach 2 people I don't know. And I'll try not to leave until I make 2 good contacts or 2 appointments. And then each week, I say, well, did you do it? So, it's important to have an accountability partner, whether it's a coach. Coaches are great. We're absolutely fantastic. But you can also just have a person that, you kind of hold yourself accountable for. But, but with those 3 things, she started really meeting people, and she started making friends, and she started making appointments, and her boss was so happy that he actually gave her a raise. So, that's the kind of getting out of it. I always kind of set things up as, so I'm the Alligator Wrangler. You get out of the alligator pit by thinking differently and changing that core thought. And then you stay out by interacting differently with a win-win that I talked about earlier. And then you move on by really embracing your leadership and being clear about, what impact and your uniqueness and your passion. And when you're clear about that, people want to follow you. So those are kind of the 3 steps that I like to really concentrate on with people and my clients and my audiences when I give presentations.
Okay, so let's kind of coming from a different angle here now. Thinking about growing up, Can you relate an experience you had growing up that influences how you approach business today?
That's an interesting question. I would say that I grew up an adventurer. You know, I was an Army brat, so I moved around a lot. And then when I grew up, I ran off to be an actress for a while. I went to New York. I went to LA. I went to Dallas. I came back. But the whole time I was also having, you know, I was also working at the same time. But, you know, I always try to bring that adventuresome spirit to everything I do. So I always try to look at things in a different way. And I always try to help people embrace what's special about them and give them the ideas and the tools and the techniques so that they can do what they actually want to do. Like, for example, somebody I was coaching a couple of weeks ago, she was kind of stuck in this job and it wasn't paying what she felt she needed to make. But it was a job, but she was also doing courses online, and she was actually doing some university type things, but also on her own. It was about how to interact differently, I think, something like that. And anyway, she said that she really loved doing that, but, you know, she had this job and she was trying to figure out a way to keep this job. And it was interesting because as we talked, what she really wanted to do was concentrate on these courses that she gave. But instead, all of her focus was on this job that didn't pay well. And I said, well, if you got that going a little bit, would it pay just as much? And she said, yeah. I was like, how long, if it didn't work out, how long could you survive, you know, without this job if it didn't work out? And she said, I could do it for a while. And I said, okay, well, if that's going to pay at least as well, but have a lot more opportunities, maybe you should go in that direction. But because she was kind of blocked, she hadn't even thought about that. And, you know, it was so, I mean, I love the fact, you know, hopefully she does that. But I love the fact that I was able to open her up to opportunities that she just hadn't even really thought about. And I think all of us have blind spots, and just having that opportunity to say, hey, you know, be adventuresome. Life isn't going to live forever. You're not going to live forever. Do the things you love. And, you know, I kind of did that. You know, I kept on trying to, you know, okay, the forecasting thing, okay, and that kind of moved into the culture thing. And now, you know, it's moved into the leadership thing. And I just love helping leaders, because the leader's mindset is what goes down to everybody else. A little bit of organic from the bottom, but it's usually the top. If the top cares about the people, you know, actually, you know, another example today that Pat Lencioni was talking about was that at Southwest, that they actually the CEO, Gary Kelly, I think his name is, he makes a point to ask about the other people, like two down, you know, like, and ask questions about those people so that he knows that everybody is asking questions about everybody else and caring about everybody else. As a matter of fact, I don't know if it was him or another example where they were talking about how somebody at this conference was talking about, oh gosh, what was it? Lost my train of thought there. It was such a good example. It'll pop back in my head in a minute.
Okay. All right. So let me.
Oh, I know what it was.
Okay.
I know what it was. It was that he asked somebody. It was a doctor, and he ran this hospital. And one of the people who worked at night loved the job whenever he was there, but not when the other person. He didn't really understand it. Why? She didn't understand why. Well, the one night she heard him talking to an intern and said, you know, the guy that in the anesthesiology room that helped set everything up, his name is Manuel. And I know he has 2 kids, and I know he has, he goes boating on the weekends. Your job for tomorrow is to come back and find out and tell me one more thing about him that I don't know.
Yeah.
And also that, that, you know, how do you bring meaning to these jobs, you know? And like, for example, the guy at the drive-through window, how do you bring meaning to that person? Well, you know, how about saying to them, how many smiles can you get out of customers tonight? Let's have a competition to see who can get the most smiles. You know? So, you know, just finding these meanings.
Yeah.
Oh, the sun is coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me move over here.
Let me ask you this question. You've been doing this for a while now. So if you to reflect on how things went, if you had to start all over again from scratch, what would you do differently today, and what would you continue doing the same?
I would say I would get a focus earlier. At first, I was just like all over the place. I wanted to help everybody. And once I focused on, okay, I'm going to help managers and leaders, whether they be, you know, the manager or leader, because we're all leaders in one way or the other. You know, we lead at church, we lead at, you know, the synagogue, we lead at our families, we lead our businesses, but really focusing on that leadership aspect and, you know, focusing on, you know, managers and leaders and being very clear, but that's my focus, has helped me a lot. And yes, I can work with others, but, you know, when you have kind of that focus thing going, then a lot of your research and the stuff that you do can be focused around that. So, you know, I definitely think that is definitely something I would tell people. I also definitely think that it's important to really have that thinking what you want and feeling what you want, so that, you know, that you really get that conscious and unconscious thing going, because, you know, you're clear, you've got that clarity, and really being clear about, again, about your uniqueness and your passion and your impact. So for me, you know, I'm very clear. My passion is to help leaders become better. My uniqueness is I have this great energy program, Energizing Your Leadership Mindset Program, and I have a lot of techniques around that. And I have the assessment that I do that really shows people where they are. And then my impact is hopefully I'm changing the world a little at a time. So when I'm clear about it, actually a client that I had was is building a community center down in South Austin. And when he first came to me, he'd been working corporate for a long time, and he kind of had that mindset of, you know, people were supposed to do what I say, and he knew that wasn't going to work anymore, obviously. So he kind of asked me, you know, how do I change my kind of the way that I lead? And you know, when we talked about it, and, you know, I said, well, you know, what do you feel passionate about? And he said, well, you know, what I feel passionate about is there's so many millennials out there that I meet that seem so successful, but inside they're kind of miserable and lonely, and they're really not into church. And he's a very spiritual guy. And so I can't really help them with their spirituality, but I was thinking that, you know, what I really feel a calling for is to help these people connect in the community. And I think that by having these, you know, co-working space and having restaurants for people to gather and having a playground and having, you know, entrepreneurs group and all this stuff will really help bring these millennials and help them as well as the rest of the community. So I said, oh, great. That's, you know, that I could feel your passion. You know, definitely. He's very passionate about that. And it was like, well, what's unique about this? And he said, well, I really want to get social media, because I know these millennials really are really, you know, social media wizards and very real time. So what I'm doing is I'm putting together this app that will connect directly to my partners. And his big partner right now is a food pantry type place. Uh-huh. And what I want to, my app will, you know, so you can immediately say, okay, my partners need this right now. So if somebody's there, they can just go over, or, they can set it up right then and there. He even wants to have a kiosk that has like a flashing thing that goes around saying, like all the volunteer opportunities in the area. That's unique. I love it. And then it's like, well, what's your impact? And he said, well, I really want people to be learning stuff. I want them to connect, and I want to continue to grow this so that, people really feel like they have a place, that they can be cared about. So perfect. So now, he goes out and he says, it's Solimar. We promote joy, we promote social good, and we promote personal growth. And people listen because he's clear about it. He stands his ground, and people want to say, well, what about Solimar? What's it all about? And he's been getting more and more people involved with the investment opportunities and volunteering to really help him get started. And he's right on track. And a lot of it is because he's really clear about what he's doing, and it makes a difference. People want to know the what when they know the why.
Okay. Well, Carrie, this has been fascinating, but we're rapidly running out of time here. So how can people get in touch with you to learn more?
You can reach me at carrievanston.com, CARRIE, V as in Victor, ANSTON.com, or the alligatorwrangler.com also gets you there. So that's a little easier, the alligatorwrangler.com. You can reach me at carrievanston.com. And let's see, how else? 512-740-9089. I am very happy to send you a copy of the 8 tips of getting out of the COVID Alligator Wrangler alligator pit. You can also find it online under the CEO magazine right now. If you'd like to have a goal sheet, I talked a little bit about goals. I have a goal sheet that I'd be happy to offer you. Also, if you're really kind of like in a pit right now, happy to offer you a free session on, how to get it out of that pit and move on during this period. And then until July 1st, I'm giving 40% off my programs and my consulting and my assessment for anybody during this COVID-19 period. So I'd love to hear from you. Please, reach out to me. I'm on social media. You can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook and Twitter, and I'd absolutely love to hear from you.
Okay, well, thanks, Carrie. This has been fascinating.
One more thing.
Okay.
Henry, if anybody would like to have this hour session where I go through the eight tips, I'm offering that for free right now too, and that includes an interaction with the audience.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Carrie, thank you so much. This has been fascinating. We just could go on and on and on, but I want to be respectful of your time. So thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you very much, Henry. It's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Business Performance Podcast with your business coach, Henry Schneider. For more episodes and business strategies, please visit welcome.ppqc.net/blog. That's www.welcome.ppqc.net/blog. And remember to subscribe so you can get the latest episodes. Thank you.